Well,
Well,
Eric, hey, thanks for joining me. It's fun to have you on.
yeah, for sure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah,
Hopefully
it's
we have enough to talk about. I'm sure we have things we can discuss.
I think so. It's been fun. I've been watching your channel, gosh, for quite a while now.
Hey, thanks.
Because I'm an avid DIYer. In fact, we moved down to Georgia, having never actually stepped foot in the state of Georgia until after we signed the paperwork. So there's
Yeah.
certainly plenty to do on the house, but I was watching one of your latest videos, and I had seen a shirt you wore every now and then that had some, I think for probably your beer league, that had a hockey stick on there. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
hockey
yeah.
fan, cool. And then one of your last videos, when you were talking about moving from the apartment garage to now your new garage, your home,
Yeah.
uh, and a picture of you. I was like, I got to get him on the podcast, talk goaltending.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's been something I've been doing for. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into it like more in the show and
Yeah,
whatnot. But yeah, I've been doing it for a while as far as hockey goes, and unfortunately, it's not as big of part of my life as it used to be. But still, enjoy it on the weekends, right?
yep, yeah. So I mean, you're in Ohio. Are you in Cincinnati or Cleveland?
I'm in Columbus.
Oh, Columbus, even better. I've
Yeah.
got family there, and I almost went to school there. My uncle was really hoping I would go to the Ohio State, but
Yeah.
I opted to go up into Minnesota and play hockey up there. But he was hoping I would go there because he was living in a house dominated by women. He's like, I need some more testosterone in this house. But that didn't happen. But last time I was there with him, we had to make it over to the Brewdog Brewery for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them down here now.
Yeah, well, we went to the main brewery, and it
And
was worth it because he and I both homebrew, and I was in town because my grandmother had passed away, and me and my
oh,
sister, we had just driven from Chicago. We get there, we hadn't been in the house 15 minutes, and he looks at me and my dad. He goes, "You two, let's get in the car and go somewhere." We weren't even out of the garage. He's like, "So how far is the brewery from here?" And he turns around, he goes, "How do you know where we're going?" I said, "Because I know you, I know me, and I know the brewery." And he's like, well, it's on the other side of town because they live up in the Dublin area. And
okay.
and I was like, so about 15 minutes. And he kind of laughed. He goes, yeah, 15 minutes.
Yeah, if you're going to the main one down in like Canal Winchester, it's probably
Yeah.
like a good 45-minute drive from Dublin.
Yeah. Well, I always pick on him for that because I was, I think, 7 or 8 years old. And he was finally marrying my aunt. And he was always with my aunt my whole life. But they were just together for many, many years. And finally they decided to get married. So me and my mom and sister, we drove in, and my dad was out in Maryland for a class for the fire department. So I had to pick him up from the airport, and this was in the 80s. So we go to the airport, and he likes to go to the top of the parking deck to look and watch the planes. So we're watching the planes, and then he goes, "Look at that, isn't it great?" And I go, "What are we looking at?" Because I grew up in Chicago, and he
Right.
goes, "Downtown Columbus," and I go, "Those three buildings?"
It's all right.
And he's like, "Let's go inside." So I've always picked on him for like, "Oh, Columbus is a big city." No, it's not. And he's like, "You," and I made him matter later in the week because I wore a Michigan t-shirt to the wedding reception. And he's the kind of Buckeye fan that doesn't leave the house without a Buckeye nut in his pocket.
Right,
So,
right. Takes it a little too far.
30 plus years later, and he still hasn't forgiven me. But I even as a small child, I was trolling.
That's awesome. I love it though. It's fun.
Yeah. So no, I've got a nice soft spot in my heart for Columbus. Been following the Jackets ever since their inception. It's
It's like
such
being a Maple Leafs fan.
Yeah, but Columbus is such a low key hockey market that I don't think your average hockey fan realizes how much the city really loves that team. You've got the Buckeyes, and that's its whole other realm. But Columbus is a under the radar hockey town.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all, especially in the youth space right now, it's absolutely blowing up, and there's all sorts of nonsense going on around here where so Ohio Health, which is like a big healthcare company, sponsors slash owns all of the rinks in town.
Oh
And
wow.
then they know, because they're a huge company, right? They
Yeah.
know everybody who's on like the board of directors and like the city, chamber of commerce and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So mysteriously, when anyone tries to build another rink, it gets shut down. So there's a lot of nonsense around it. But if Ohio Health wants to build another rink, no problem. It
Yeah.
goes immediately comes up. So you'll have ice time that's like we'll have beer league games that start at midnight because
Yep.
they don't have enough ice time. But
Well, I live in Atlanta now, and when we moved down here, there's 7 sheets of ice across 5 rinks
sure.
currently. Well, one of the rinks about 3 weeks ago, rumors started swirling that they were going to shut down and convert to pickleball, and that was a rink with 2 sheets of ice. Sure enough, last week they shut down, and so now we're down to 5 sheets of ice. So now we're sitting here because it's looking like we're going to get an expansion team. And part of
Yeah.
the proposal for the Kraus family proposal, which in my opinion is the one that'll probably get it because it's the most fleshed out, but it includes a practice rink with 2 sheets of ice, like almost like within 5 minutes of where the other rink that just shut down is. So it's like, okay, great, but why couldn't that other rink wait a year?
Right.
Because one of the youth programs skates out of that rink, so now that whole program doesn't have a home. It's got a
Yeah.
large figure skating club there, which has moved to the rink up in right by where I live, where my son works. He's like, yeah, normally for figure skating ice time, there's like 10, 12 kids. He's like, now there's like 30 plus out there. Well, that's not good for figure skating either because there's no room to,
No. No room
do
to
your
move.
stuff. So it's, the beer league times are going to be getting later. And it's funny because the rink my son works at is actually owned by the one beer league down here. They bought the rink and they're like, no, youth hockey is still our priority. We want that to thrive because they have bedtimes. So like they're
Yeah,
like,
right.
you're not going to get those early choice ice times. So they've made that clear. But they're like, now we got to accommodate more youth hockey at these rinks. So
Right.
beer league times, which were already late, are going to get later. Luckily, I drive about 30 minutes to. It's called the Duluth Ice Forum. It's the old Atlanta Thrashers practice rink.
Oh,
It's
okay.
2 sheets. It's a lovable dump. Like for a couple of weeks, we had just construction lights in the one locker room because all of the lights were broken in the locker rooms. It's like there's always something not working, but the ice itself is fine. And
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
nice little bar and grill up above that they're smart. You get a free pitcher after every game because it brings people
Yeah.
upstairs. But it's such a lovable dump. But it's like that's what we have down here. Coming from Minnesota where we had the super rink, which had 8 sheets in its own right.
Oh, I
Plus,
bet.
and to get there, I would pass, I think, 5 rinks, but different story. So you're in Columbus. Did you just grow up playing hockey? How did you discover this great game?
So I don't know. What was I like? 5, maybe 4 or 5. This is back in the day when hockey was on ESPN, which
Yeah.
like isn't a thing anymore.
Bill
You know,
Clement and Gary Thorne.
yeah. Mike Milbury's out there taking his skates off and stabbing people.
Yes.
But no, it's still like, you flipping through channels. He didn't really have many
Mhm.
channels at home in the 90s, right? And, hockey came on. I was like, oh, this is pretty neat. And I had a school buddy that I knew played in this, youth league. And I asked him at school, like at the lunch table or whatever, where all the youth shenanigans go down.
Yep.
And I was like, hey, you play hockey, right? And he was like, yeah, I do. And so I was like, all right, well, let's get my parents to talk to your parents and, get it set up. So as funny, my parents were like, all right, we understand you want to play the sport. We're fully involved in it and fully invested in supporting you, but we're not going to sign you up for a team unless we know that you can ice skate. Okay. Fair.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, yeah, sure. So what do I do? Well, my dad signs me up for figure skating lessons down at Ohio State campus ice rink.
Yep.
And so I'm like, I don't want to be figure skating or whatever. So like, I put the figure skates on. The first class, you go out there and they go, okay, skate across the ice. And I do it and they go, all right, you're at level 4 now. So I guess I just circumvented like 3 levels just by being able to skate across the ice. And
Yep.
then so like he did a couple days of that or whatever. And my parents were like, all right, you can ice skate or whatever. So we signed up for one of those little local youth rec league teams that that you play one
Yeah.
game a week, and
Yep.
met a ton of good friends, some guys that I still know now, some guys that were one of my best man in my wedding was in that league, and yeah, just kept playing youth hockey, and then high school came up, played some high school hockey, and then and we can obviously rewind, but unfortunately, I got to the point where it was time to go to college, and
Yep.
I was going to Ohio State to pursue engineering, and Ohio State's D1 team is really good, right?
Yep. Yeah. One of the
I,
goalies I coached wound up playing there and was their goalie coach for a number of years.
yeah, so like beyond my skill level for sure.
Yep.
But I went out and tried out for the varsity club team or whatever. I was like, this could be
Mhm.
fun. And I go in there, I talk to the coach, everything, practice is good, no problem. And I just talk to him afterwards. I go, hey, by the way, I'm in school full time and I work like 30 hours a week. Is that going to be a problem? And he goes, yeah, you're not on the team. So that that was pretty much the end of my pursuing higher level hockey, because like I didn't have an option. Like I had
Right.
to work while I was in
Yep.
school. And I totally understand that, a D1 club team is like a full-time commitment. You're not going to be working almost full-time while
Yep.
going to school full-time as
You know,
well.
it's crazy too because I graduated college in '03, and I was fortunate enough. I went Division III and played on the JV team
Sure.
for 4 years. I joke I had the fastest door in the MIAC for 4 years, but at that time, club hockey in college, was just viewed as almost glorified beer league hockey. It's
Like
not
rec
what
league.
it, yeah, it's not what
Yeah.
it is today. Where, like you said, it's the time commitment that we had as
Yeah.
NCAA athletes because we were skating 6 days a week.
Mhm.
Even as soon as we stepped on campus, we couldn't do anything organized with our coaches until October 1. But every day up until that, we were doing something with our captains. It was, a mini job almost. And one of the guys I skate with, he's the University of Georgia assistant coach, and they're not even ACHA. They were AAU this year. They're switching
Okay.
to ACHA, but I mean, it's every single day those kids are on the ice. Georgia Tech skates out of the rink I skate at, and they're driving 45 minutes just to get to practice at 8 o'clock at night or God knows what hour. And then Georgia, they also have a Division III club team, and they don't have the ice in Athens like the big club, so they got to drive all the way over an hour to get to practice, and they're skating at like 11 o'clock at night.
I
But
know.
still, it's a couple days a week, and yeah, it's tough to be a student athlete and work in
Yeah.
club hockey.
Right. And I really wanted to, but I mean, to be honest with you, I think
Priorities.
well, yeah, priorities for sure.
Yeah.
But I truly think it would have killed the game for me. Like if I was going to school full time, working
Hmm.
almost full time, and then trying to do club hockey on top of that, I think I
Yep.
would have been burnt out. And I don't even think I would have even wanted to play beer league or anything like that.
Right. No, I totally get it. And I was lucky when I was in college. My student job was working at the ice rink, so I drove the Zamboni. Um,
Mm,
And I was supposed to work 4 hours a day. And really all I did was hop off the ice while we were doing power skating at the end of practice, so I could take my pads and skates off and clean the
Sure.
ice before the women got on the ice. So I'm out there with my goalie equipment, everything else, just no pads or
Oh,
skates on. It was like before cell phones and camera phones and everything. Was just funny. But somehow I was getting paid for 4 hours for a 15-minute ice resurface. I
well,
didn't
it's probably
complain.
because the manager who was operating the payroll and time
No,
cards and everything was probably in college too, so they were like,
no,
ah,
no.
whatever.
The arena manager was my coach. That's how it happened.
Oh, okay. But you had the inside track.
Yeah, I had a key to the rink. I got. I think there were only 4 students allowed to drive the Zamboni, and I was one of them somehow. But it was just funny, where it's like, yeah, I'm getting paid for 4 hours for 15 minutes of work. But then I was always at the rink, so I was always doing stuff around the rink. But it was just one of those funny um, work study jobs,
Yeah.
So you start playing hockey young, and I find it awesome that you start out figure skating, because that's actually a good move for a lot of kids when they start to learn to skate,
Oh
because
yeah.
figure skaters are a more technical skater. In fact,
Yeah.
one of my high school teammates, he started out in figure skating and like competed, and he's got pictures of him and Johnny Weir on the podiums together, where
Nice.
he outperformed Johnny Weir. Now they're like 9 years old, so he's like,
Right.
still, I don't care. I beat Johnny Weir. But he was because he was one of the best skaters on the team. And there's even NHL clubs that employ figure skating coaches as their power skating coaches. So it's I think as young hockey players are like, oh my god, but when you look back at it, it's like it's a great move.
Yeah, but come on, what 5-year-old kid
Right.
that's going to their parents that's like, "Hey, I want to play hockey," and their
Yeah.
parents go, "Okay, but you need to do figure skating." Like,
Yeah.
I'm honestly knowing myself now, I'm shocked I didn't say, forget about it.
Well,
Like, I
and
don't want to do it.
at that time in Columbus, I can't imagine there were many hockey learn to skates either.
No, because this was prior to the Blue Jackets coming in
Mhm.
town, so like we had this like minor league team,
The
kind of
chill.
somewhat. Well, yeah, the chill, right?
Yep.
So I think that was probably most people's highest interaction with some form of ice hockey, right?
Yep.
And it just wasn't super prevalent. Like,
Right.
wasn't a lot going on.
Yeah. I left because my learn to skate. I went to Murray Bannerman's learn to skate, and I just remember looking at him because he was the great Hawks goalie for many years, and you know, being this kid who could barely skate, I'm like, one day I want to be as good as Murray. And
Yeah.
then I watched the Stadium Series alumni game in Minnesota when he was out there skating against the North Stars, and I was like, I think I've reached that stage where I'm better than Murray
Oh
Bannerman.
yeah. Oh yeah.
You know?
Lost
Yeah.
some skill now with the age,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
But I mean, he was just out there. And I remember talking to Connor Beaupre, Don Beaupre's son. It is Don wasn't sure if he wanted to play in that alumni game, but then Clark Gillis called him, who is older than Don by a good 10 years, and he's like, Donnie, I'm playing in the game. Are you playing too? And he's like, well, I feel like I've got to play now too. But he said his dad got some ice time and went through some drills so that he wasn't looking like Murray out there.
Didn't
You know,
embarrass himself.
yeah, he's like he didn't want to make the old school '80s skate saves or anything like that. So he
Oh,
said
come on, bring him back.
yeah, but it was funny. He's like, yeah, dad felt bullied into to playing in the game, so he didn't want to make a fool of himself. So you start learning to skate figure skating, which again I think is a very underrated route for hockey players. And then you start playing. When did you discover the wonderful position of goaltending?
So I mean, it's not a long story, but I'll tell how I got into it. It has absolutely nothing to do with hockey. It has everything to do with the wonderful phys ed programs in elementary school
Yeah.
in the 90s, where, you know, these sports you might have heard of, like basketball, soccer, baseball, forget it. We're not going to do anything like that. We're going to like have kids like stand on frisbees and throw bowling pins and stuff. Like these phys ed teachers in the 90s would come up with the most asinine games in the world that people would play.
Yep.
But there was this one game that was, and there were always mashups of games, but it was this game. It was like dodgeball and bowling mixed together. So hear me out. You're on a basketball court. You can't go past the center line, and at the end, like right under the basketball hoop, you have bowling pins.
Mhm.
So you play dodgeball. You're trying to knock people out. If they get hit with the ball, they go to the side of the court or whatever. But the premise of the game is that you wanted to knock the other team's bowling pins down. So obviously, the more people you knocked out, the easier it would be to try to knock these bowling pins down.
Mhm.
Now, I discovered that it was really fun to stand in front of the bowling pin and have these balls just absolutely wailing at me and try to protect the bowling pin.
Yeah.
So then when I was playing, went to hockey practice or whatever, they're throwing around the goalie gear as they do in a lot of youth teams. And I thought, this might be like bowling dodgeball at hockey or at school. And so I, did that for a practice or two. And I was like, this is pretty sweet. So I got into it. And a lot of it had to do with you thinking you looked really cool wearing the gear.
Oh, yeah.
But then it just started being so much fun to just do something different than what everybody else was doing, of just trying to not let that little chunk of rubber get past you. And it's kind of it's a weird origin story, but that's truly where it came from. It was some stupid game I played in elementary school phys ed and blossomed into what almost 30 years worth of horrible hockey that I played.
And when you decided to be goalie, what did mom and dad think of that?
They were always super supportive of whatever like extracurricular endeavors we wanted to go on. My sisters did horseback riding, which is
cool.
Like, it's super expensive and like very not just run of the mill.
No, my in-laws had a hobby farm for a number of years and they had horses. So I get it. It's not a hobby, it's a lifestyle. And there's very few people that are into horse riding that are wealthy for a reason. It all goes into the horses.
Right. Yeah. And they didn't do like competitions or anything like that. It was more of just like every Wednesday after school, you go ride a horse for an hour or something like that. But my parents were super supportive of me wanting to be a goalie. They never like tried to talk me out of it or anything like that. But I still remember my dad would say that my mom, whenever they, offensive rush would come down and they're about to take a shot, my mom would get so nervous every single time. No matter how many years I've been a goalie, she'd get so nervous.
Yep. I think goalie mom is probably the hardest sports parent to have out there, because I've not met one that's just like chill and lay back during the game. Like, they love it, don't get me wrong, but their blood pressure, like if we looked at heart monitor rates for them during a game, I can't imagine how ridiculous. If they had an Apple Watch on, it'd probably be like 911.
You just have a heart attack.
My mom used to sit next to, when I was playing youth hockey, Mrs. Hutchinson, and it was amusing because her husband was a ref. In fact, he still is an off-ice official at Notre Dame. And so she would be sitting there. Nobody else would sit next to her because game's going on. And if there's something happening, or the refs aren't making the call, she just instinctively starts hitting the person next to her, so that's Mrs. Hutchinson. But my mom was able to learn the rules that way. And Mrs. Hutchinson was like, when my mom was getting all, wound up because of my play, she's like, calm down, sweetheart. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Right.
They're going to blow the whistle. And so, they kind of fed off each other. And it was funny because my teammate Adam, his younger brother, wound up becoming a goalie too. So Mrs. Hutchinson was like, well, at least I know how to deal with it now, having taken care of your mom.
Right. Oh, that's funny. I think the
Yeah,
moms
but
just feel that like they know the pressure, right? It's like
yeah.
if I make a mistake, they're gonna score,
Oh
and
yeah,
then they don't want that
and
pressure of
mom
knowing
feels
that it's their
bad.
son's fault,
Whereas
right?
our dad, they're happy, they're supportive and everything else, but it's, you know, a different feeling for them. They're not so worried about our feelings as the way mom was,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess.
I think that's
Way to
part of
say it.
it too, is knowing, oh, if Eric messes this up and it gets scored on, everyone on the team is gonna know that it was his fault.
Yeah.
But you and I know that, yes, it looks like our fault, but there's a lot of times where you're like, oh, come on. My teammates just absolutely hosed me and left me out to dry on that one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny and now, there's those obvious examples, and even the teammates will come back and be like, "Yeah, that one's not on you. That was on
Yeah,
us."
yeah, yeah.
But no, it was just funny thinking back to that. I remember when I decided to become a goalie. It was during tryout. I don't even know why they call them tryouts. It was just kind because I was playing house league my first year, and they're just kind of evaluating everybody. And they're like, "All right, we're going to have
Right.
4 teams. We got 3 goalies out here. Does anybody want to try goalie?" Because our association had equipment. My
Right.
hand went up right away. And as my dad tells the story, he's like, my hand went up, and he's sitting there going, "Put it down,
Oh,
put it down, put it down," because he understood the financial ramifications of this
oh yeah.
decision. And
Oh yeah.
on top of that, the coach that brought me goalie gloves from the 1970s and a stick just to, try it out in this scrimmage during evals happened to be somebody he worked with at the firehouse, Mr. Carbonell. And he said he went to work the next day and found Mr. Carbonell in the kitchen and goes, "Do you hate me that much?" It's like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Do you know how much money you just cost me putting those gloves on my
Yeah.
kid?" And
Yeah.
sure enough, I'm still playing and all of it, but it was, they got a good laugh about that one for a number of years. And that's why I asked, what did mom and dad think when you decided to be a goalie? Because yeah, it's kind of like Joe Exotic. I'm never going to financially recover from
Oh
this
yeah,
one.
yeah. See, that's the thing, is like you take ice hockey, which is inherently just an expensive sport in and of
Yep.
its own, and then you go, yeah, I want to do the most expensive position.
Yeah,
Your parents are like,
exactly.
come on. No, but
Well,
I don't
yeah,
know. I don't remember my parents ever being like upset about that or
yeah,
anything. But I mean, I definitely, I mean, I share this with my wife and friends and everybody. Like, I remember growing up, I mean, we were by no means like the wealthiest family around. And
right.
so when it came for, getting gear and stuff, it was, this is your birthday, this is your Christmas present, and you're doing, now this sounds terrible, you're doing hard labor around the house. Like, you're
Yep.
going to rip up all the grass, you're going to tear up the carpet, you're going to tear the wallpaper off the wall. And if you've ever done that, you know how much that
Yes.
sucks.
Yeah. You might
But
as well
like,
just pull the sheetrock down and start over.
oh, I know, I know. And like, part of me thinks my parents knew that, but
Yeah.
they just wanted to be like, you're gonna work for this,
Yep.
Like, I can't get a job when I'm 10, but
Yeah.
you're gonna work around the house to get all this gear and stuff. And while your other friends are getting BMX bikes and crazy stuff for Christmas and
Yep.
birthdays, you're getting a new hockey stick or a new chest protector or something like that. And
Yep.
even then, like, you're not, well, I wasn't going to the hockey store and trying on the latest Bauer CCM thing. It was
No.
like we were going on eBay and
Yeah.
buying stuff that has been used and abused for years,
Oh yeah.
because that's one, that's all you can afford. And two, like, you're growing like a weed as a kid. That's nuts to
Yeah.
be buying all this brand new stuff,
Yeah.
especially as a goalie.
My first pair of goalie skates I got at Play It Again Sports for, I
Hmm.
want to say $20. And
Right.
my foot was almost done growing at that point, grew
Right.
early. So I was able to wear those skates for 2 or 3 seasons. And then it was time for me to get new skates. And I went to this place across from Southwest Ice Arena, um, Hockey Unlimited, and they catered to goalies because the owner was a goalie. I mean,
Right.
they had everything there. It was great. And you could trade in your old stuff. And so we traded my old skates, and we didn't tell them until after the sale was final. And We said,
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
you just gave us $25 for the skates we traded in. We bought them 2 years ago. I play it again for $20.
Oh,
And,
nice.
he just started laughing. He goes, "Oh, it sounds like you guys made a good deal."
Yeah. I mean,
uh,
come on. At that time, they're
yeah.
not going to be like, well,
No. Oh, Linus, he wouldn't have cared. He's
right.
like, I'm not going to be upset over $5. He's like, but he thought it was hilarious. So we always laughed about it afterwards. But to your point, growing up in Chicago, we inherited a snowblower when the old guy 2 doors down just couldn't do it anymore.
Right.
So, and our block was mostly elderly people. So my dad started, shoveling before work if he could. And that's when we got the snowblower, because the neighbor was like, here, use this instead of the shovel. And so then I decided one day when dad was at the firehouse, because we got a big snow, I was going to go out and clear the sidewalks as dad did. And all of a sudden, a couple envelopes wound up in our mailbox with money for me, and it wasn't much. It was, $4 or $5 here and there. I'm like, I can start making money. Now, there was Grandma Kovacs 2 doors down, and then Marge, who lived across the street. They didn't pay me in money. They paid me in baked goods. So if it snowed and I shoveled before school, the race was on to get home before dad got home from working his side job. Otherwise, he'd be eating the cookies or cake.
Yeah.
For me. But it was, I never asked anybody for money. It was just kind of like this unwritten understanding everybody had where, if it was, every couple of inches of snow, they would put an envelope in the mailbox. So, and if on a good day when we'd get a blizzard, I'd make $100.
Yeah.
And so I just started saving up my snow shoveling money, and I bought myself new gloves one year. I just started buying pieces of equipment that way until I got my first job working underage working in a liquor store owned by one of my teammates.
Wait. You worked in a liquor store underage?
Yeah, I think I was 14 or 15, and one of my teammates, his family owned a liquor store, and I wanted to make money, and they're like, well, we can pay you under the table all cash if you want to stock shelves and stuff, working weekends. I was like, I'm there. So
what a time to be alive.
Yeah.
Table.
So my teammate could work there because it was his family. And I looked enough like him where they're like, if anybody from the city or the county came in, you look enough, there's enough of a resemblance. We could be like, he's our nephew. And, we could skirt things that way. But it was like, yeah. So my first job was working at a liquor store. And, then I started buying. But I remember I was in high school, and I had a temper. And this was back in wooden goalie sticks. In fact, I was still using a Cooper goalie stick. So that tells you how long ago it was. Yeah. And I would break them over my knee if I got really mad after a goal.
Oh.
And so my dad finally said, if you break another stick out of anger, I'm not buying you another one. He's like, if it breaks because it breaks, it's a different story. But if you break it out of anger, it's up to you to buy it. Sure enough, next hockey game comes, and my grandpa's there. My grandpa, he was a Dutch immigrant, didn't really understand the game, but he loved watching me play. And I let in a goal, and I break my stick over my knee, and all of a sudden I go, oh, shoot. And my dad says,
time to work.
My dad says, your grandpa looks over at me, he goes, why is he upset? It wasn't that bad of a goal. He goes, no, he just realizes he cost himself $50.
Right.
Because he's got to buy his own sticks when he breaks one out of anger. And I goes, oh, okay. So we're in the lobby of the arena after the game, and my dad's talking to somebody. My grandpa comes over to me, hands me a 50. He goes, here, go buy yourself a new stick. Don't tell your dad, but don't do it again. And sure enough, I haven't broken a stick out of anger since then. Oh. It's like, lesson learned. Thanks, Gramps.
I'm trying to think back. I don't know if I ever broke a stick out of anger. I definitely had the thing where, like, you're playing with the stick and maybe you go stop a puck behind the net and you jam it and you're like, oh, this one's hanging on by a thread, and you just, you skate to the bench, end its life, and then grab a new one. Like, I've done that, but I don't think I've ever just like tomahawked one over the crossbar or anything like that.
Well, some of those old wooden sticks, I didn't tomahawk them over the crossbar. I would take the stick in my hand and just jam it right at my pad. And so, like, right where the shaft meets the paddle, that's where it would break.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that that was one of those fun times. So you play through high school. You're playing goalie, and as you said, once you get to college, you're working to put yourself through school.
Yeah.
You become an engineer, and we'll talk about that later because my son's actually looking to become an engineer.
All right.
But I'm guessing at that point, hockey just took a backseat. You really weren't skating through those college years. Is that probably accurate?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest with you, it's like, I got out of high school. I was playing hockey 6, 7 days a week since
Yep.
I was, pretty young. Then you
Yep.
graduate high school, you go out for the college team, you get told basically, you can't pursue your lifestyle and be on our team. And so I
Right.
just stopped.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. And about a year and a half later, one of my friends, oh no, I know what it was. It was my high school chemistry coach, or high school chemistry teacher. I ended up doing like a community service project thing. Everybody that graduated from our school had to do like a community service thing. I coached his sons, was like an assistant coach for his son's hockey team, and it continued to do that for 6, 7 years. And I was just talking to him. I was like, "Do you know like where I can even play hockey?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, you can play in this rec league." So signed up for the rec league, knowing nothing about it. They just a team reached out to me. They're like, "Hey, we need a goalie for tonight," and it was an E-league team. I knew I had. Okay, I know you're laughing, right? I knew nothing. So I show up, get in the locker room, just chat with the guys, and I was like, "All right, well, how long you guys played hockey? You guys played college, high school, or whatever?" And they all just kind of like looked at each other, and they're like, "We just started playing a couple weeks ago." And I was like, "Oh, like it's a new team?" They're like, "No, we started playing a couple weeks ago." So I went out on the ice and played the longest hockey game of my life with people that had literally just learned to skate a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Very soon after that, reached out to like the head of the commissioner of the league and was like, "Hey, here are my credentials. What league should I play in?" And he was like,
Yeah.
"All right, we're gonna bump you up several levels." And then now I've been playing with the same group of guys since 2012, 2013. So like 12, 13 years now. So we got a great group of guys. Hang out every Sunday, go golfing.
Yeah. And that's the fun thing about beer league hockey is, it's your family in a way. I got into, so I started playing beer league hockey back in high school when, teams would need a goalie, I would fill in.
Yeah, I've done that times too.
I did that. And then when I would be home in Chicago over breaks, there was always teams. And then right after college, I started coaching at the high school level in Minnesota. So I really wasn't playing. I was on the ice 5 days a week, but I wasn't playing.
Right.
There were the odd practices where one of our goalies couldn't make it. So I put the pads on, and that was fun. The first time I did it, kids were always picking me like, "Oh, you played your youth hockey and high school hockey in Chicago. What do you know? This and that." and then that first time I put the pads on and like showed them like, "Oh yeah, this guy is decent."
Yeah.
Kind of earned their respect, which in Minnesota, that's kind of what you have to do.
Right.
But then it wasn't until we had moved that we showed up to the National Night Out festivities, and the fire engine showed up, and one of my college teammates gets off the rig, and he's like, "Bondo," because that was my college nickname. And the background, I'll tell you the background in a minute, but he's like, "Bondo, what are you doing here?" And I was like, "I live here. What are you doing here?" He's like, "Well, I'm on the fire department. I live like less than a mile from here." Really? I was like, "Holy cow." And it was a shock to me because he was from southeastern or southwestern Minnesota, and like we're in the northern at this point. And, you know, I grew up in Chicago, so we weren't expecting to see each other that night by any means. And we get talking, and he's saying how he's skating on a team that's mostly firemen. You know, would I have any interest filling in or anything? It's like, yeah. So the fall rolls around. He's like, hey, rather than sub, would you mind being our goalie? It's like, yeah, absolutely. So I was on the hosers, you know, the rest of my time in Minnesota. And even though I wasn't on one of the three guys that wasn't on the fire department, they're like, you probably have more time at fires than we do. Cause I grew up going to the firehouse with my dad, going to fires.
Yeah.
So they're like, yeah, you fit on the team. But then when I moved to Minnesota, we literally knew nobody down here.
Yeah.
It was just this desired for adventure. We had talked about moving probably to Nashville. In fact, I don't know if you follow Dustin Bonesy on social media. He's the Predator Z-Bug. He's an awesome guy. I had been talking to him, place, you know, good school districts of the Nashville area and getting on a team down there and everything else. But we just couldn't find anything. And so we're like, we'll wait till the kids are done with school. And then my mom passed away, and my parents live out in North Carolina on the ocean. And so we're like, what the hell are we waiting for? You know, the whole idea of moving east was to be close for my mom and dad, because we'd spent all these years with my wife's family.
Sure.
And so we're like, let's do it. So we started looking in Nashville again, but then we started having the conversation with my kids of, what do you want to do for school? And my daughter, very artistic, she was really eyeing the Savannah College of Art and Design, which is like the MIT of art schools. And we're like, okay. And my son, he came home in the 4th grade, said he wanted to be an aerospace engineer. And that has not changed. Right. He's now a junior in high school, still wants to go. It's changed a little bit since he's gotten into F1 this year. So he's like, I want to study aerodynamics, you know, so still aerospace, but maybe with a focus on automotive. And so he's been eyeing Georgia Tech for a couple of years. So we're like, well, let's move to Georgia and establish residency. And we didn't know that they actually had this really cool program funded through the lottery system. It's the Hope and the Zell scholarships. The Hope is
I've heard of it.
Yeah, the Hope is if you get a 3.0 or better in school in your core classes. So English, math, sciences, the arts, they don't factor those in. If you get a 3.0 or better and go to a state school in Georgia, you get on average 75% of your tuition paid. They say on average because it depends on how many students qualify for it every year, because they go to a state school and meet the grades, and how many people play the lottery. Well, more people have been playing the lottery. So the past couple of years, it's been like 98 to 100%.
Nice.
So my daughter qualifies for that. And she actually went down the routes where she was thinking animation and all of that cool stuff, and was accepted to SCAD, but she got really interested in politics this last election cycle for some reason, you know, and she's like, I'm worried if I go there, I'm only going to be exposed to art, you know, different kinds of art. Yeah. But I'm
maybe not as well rounded, right? And
so then we started looking at other schools so that she could look at political science and economics and other stuff. So this whole route, but she decided to go to Kennesaw State University, which is a state school. So it's like, kid, you're only paying room and board in Kennesaw. It's a great school. Ryan Seacrest went there. But they have like the lowest cost of any state school to begin with. So like just paying room and board's like, I think $4,000 a year. I'm like, nice. You could come out of college with maybe, if you just took out loans for everything, $16,000 in you know, debt. And that's not going to happen because she works. We're going to help. And, you know, she'll probably get a scholarship or two because she's bright. But the Zell scholarship is if you get a 3.7, and I think it was a 1120 on the SAT. I forget what the SAT score was. But if you get those, you get 100% of your tuition paid at a state school. Well, my son's got that 3.7. And then he got like a 1390 on his SAT. So it's like, he keeps looking at outstate schools. I'm like,
it's not worth
it. Well, he didn't think he could get into Georgia Tech until he got his SAT score. When he saw he got a 1390, he's like, oh, I can actually do this. But they got a cool partnership with Kennesaw State, where if he doesn't get in, he goes to Kennesaw, studies engineering there, and maintains a 3.0, he can have an automatic transfer his junior year and finish in the program he wants. So I'm like, it's worth thinking that way, because he's looking at Alabama, Huntsville, and Auburn. MIT's on the radar too, but I'm like, you don't want to go up to Boston to begin with. You don't want to be in the Northeast. But
freezing there.
Well, it's just all those mass holes, But so anyway, it has no meaning. I was working a hockey camp going into my freshman year, and we had kids arrive on Sunday and leave on Saturday. And usually we had kids arrive early that we had to pick up from the airport, or leave late where we had to take them the day later. Well, it was week 3. It was a horrible week. We would charge the kids $0.25 for swearing. By the end of the week, we had enough money at the end of the week to buy 2 cases of beer, a bottle of vodka, and a thing of Mike's Hard Lemonade, because it had just come out. And that's how bad these kids were. And there was no holdovers, nobody coming early. So we're like, we're going to have a night, fellas. And even though I grew up in a very Irish community, in fact, I grew up in what's known as the Southside Irish, where the largest St. Paddy's Day parade outside of Ireland. I had never actually been drunk before. I don't know how that happened. And so we just start having a few beverages and playing Tiger Woods on the PlayStation. And then our league counselor, he's like, hey, let's not just sit around all night. Let's go do something. And we're all like, well, are you driving? Because none of us can. Mm-hmm. He's like, what? Mm-hmm. And we're like, oh yeah, we got into the provisions already. He's like, well, let's go to the bottom of the hill and go bowling. So PT, we go out to his car, and there's, I think, like 7 of us, and he's just got a little 4-door car, and they're packed in, and like there's no room for me now in the car. But the door's open, and I noticed the windows are down too. And so PT's like, shit, I'm gonna have to drop these guys off and come back and get you. I was like, no. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, leave the door open. He's like, what? And I just start running and Superman dive across the laps in the back. Out. Exactly. So my arms are out the window, and we get down to the bowling alley, and all these guys knew each other. They had nicknames and everything. And the one kid, Stinny, he's putting the names on the computer. And he looks back at me. He's like, hey, Joe, do you got a nickname? I was like, nope. And he turns around, and he turns around and goes, Bondo, I like it, and puts it into the computer. Yeah. And so we go walking into the arena the next morning. We all have our sunglasses on. We're just feeling it. And the coach is like, so gentlemen, did you have a good evening? We're like, yeah. And then they're like, what about you, Bondo? And every single one of us are like, wait a minute. How do you? We still don't know how the heck they found out, because nobody told them. And it just stuck. And the coaches would call me Joe Bondo, to the point where like sophomore year, even on the practice plans during tryouts, instead of my full name, they would just put Joe Bondo. But when the official roster was posted on the door after tryouts, they put my real name, and I'm looking at it, and one of the freshmen's like, one of the freshmen's like, who's this dreading kid? I haven't seen him all tryouts. It's like, dude, that's me. He's like, no, it's not. You're Bondo. It's like, yeah, but that's my real name. He's like, no, it's not. I had to pull out my license to prove to him, but that was the name. So people are like, what's the meaning behind the college nickname? It was like, we got drunk and went bowling. Like, and it just stuck. But it was just so funny that, every year there was a freshman that just swore that was my legal name. It's like, nope, no, it's not.
Well, it's funny, because I feel like that's kind of similar in like a lot of beer league teams. Like, yeah. There'll be guys that, you refer to as their nickname, and then you'll like see them on like the roster, and you're like, I genuinely don't know who that is. Yeah. And beer league has so many like characters, even on other teams. Like there's people where I'm like, I'm looking forward to playing this game because this player's on that team. It's just like, we got one player on my team, Benny.
Benny has his doctorate in theology in Latin and is somehow not a Catholic priest.
Okay.
And it's like, what do you plan on doing with the theology in Latin degree, Benny? Like, I do think he works for a church of some sort now, but it's like, of all the things to get doctorates, and this is, but he will write poems in Latin and bring them to the game and read them to us in English. He's just like,
All right.
he's one of those characters. And on top of that, he's a Canadian. So we've been picking on him, asking him if he's putting tariffs on his level of play lately. But oh my God, but he's just one of those characters where it's like, oh my God. And we would love to give him a nickname, but it's almost like that just works for him.
And so he just doesn't even need a nickname.
Yeah, exactly. So you get back into the beer leagues and you find your team and you're still playing goalie, and you're just like, I know a lot of goalies that they, finish their competitive days and they're like, all right, I'm done stopping pucks. I want to skate out now. But you're like me. You're like, nope, I don't like it. I can't skate on a forward skate anymore with that radius. I like stopping pucks.
Yeah. So, I mean, I obviously, one, I have the equipment, right?
Yeah, right.
Obviously, I've had to upgrade a couple pieces here and there. But I mean, I have the equipment. And it's the group of guys. Like, I know that if I wanted to skate out, I would be a winger for sure. But I know my level of skating out is not on par with the group of guys that I'm playing with.
Right.
So if I would skate out, I'd have to find
a different team.
And it's not that I wouldn't be able to go procure a different team and get to know all those fellas, but it's like, these are my guys. Like this is who I want to play with on Sunday night after dinner, and it's fun. I would love to skate out, to be honest with you, but like, just the investment of buying all the gear is just like, not what I want to do right now.
Yeah, my son, even though he grew up in Minnesota, we had the backyard ice rink, we had the neighborhood pond. Never played organized hockey in Minnesota until we moved down to Georgia, and then he's like, and part of it is because they didn't have house league hockey in Minnesota. It was all travel. Mm-hmm. And they were skating 7-8 times in a week. And, in the 5th grade, they've got 9 o'clock practices. He's like, that's not for me. I was like, hey, I respect that. So then when we moved down here and they had house league hockey, he's like, I want to give it a go. So we went to Play It Again Sports last year, and we were able to get just about everything, in good condition too, for about $200. The only thing we couldn't find. No, the only thing we couldn't find in his size, because he's got boats for feet, were skates.
A set of wheels, yeah.
One of the guys I was skating with had just gotten brand new skates, and his old ones were the same size. He's like, hey, they're only a year old. If they fit, he can have them. So he came to one of my games, tried them on. Sure enough, they fit. I was like, what do I owe you? He's like, nothing. He goes, I don't want him sitting around the house. I want him to go to good use. It's like, okay. He goes, and if he finds out he doesn't like hockey, find somebody else that can use them. I was like, awesome. And then I got him a brand new helmet, because it's like, you don't want somebody else's old sweaty helmet. You want something that's good. So I got him a new helmet. But everything else we were able to find at Play It Again fairly decent, but in your point of like finding that that right mix of guys, I was worried when I moved down here. I'm like, I know they have hockey, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to find a team. And I just started. Yeah, exactly. Because like my old team is like, we liked to win, but our philosophy was, doesn't matter the score of the game, as long as there's beer in the locker room afterwards and nobody gets hurt, it's a victory. We're out here we're out here once a week to get a little bit of exercise, see the guys, and not take life too seriously. And that was the whole thing. So I'm like, am I going to be able to find that down here? And so I found some of the Facebook groups, started figuring out, what it was about. And you can't just pick a team down here. You have to go through player evals. So my kids were joking with me. They're like, oh, you got to try out to play beer league down in Georgia. I'm like, no, it's a player eval. So that, you're not playing, in the E-League. Or vice versa. And so, I was too late. We'd moved down like a week after the eval. So I'm like, I'm out for the summer, but I can, but I could get on the sub list. And so they're like,
Yeah.
what's your background? And I told them, so they kind of had an idea, but they got a cool thing down here where they call it rec hockey. It's for adults where you sign up for, the season, and it's all skill levels. It's just Friday nights. You go out, you have some fun. The goalies switch teams halfway through.
Sure.
And so, I did a couple of those, and one of the people that was, not skating the one night, but just sitting behind the nets, she was like, hey, I got your number from the rec league director. We need a sub in the other league out of Duluth. You want to skate with us? It's like, sure. So I sub for her. It was a decent group, and it's like, all right, cool, And then a couple weeks later, I get a text from somebody else like, I got your number from this person.
Yeah.
We lost our goalie. We need a goalie.
Uh-huh.
She said you'd be good for us. It's like, okay, well, that's the team I'm on now. And it's like, I could have gone to this other team that plays in a higher division, a division I probably belong in. I am playing down, if I'm being honest. But I like this group better. They're a good group. Yeah. And it's funny because I had my birthday in January and we had a game on my birthday, and I came home and I had this like little gift bag. My wife's like, what's that? It's like, the team got me a birthday present. And she's like, what? That's all. Like, she's like, I love that for you. And she's like, what's the present? And I pulled it out and she's like, what the hell is that? It's like, it's a sack of flour. It's called White Lily because unbeknownst to me at that point, because my good Irish complexion, I am as white as Casper the Ghost. When I would leave the locker room, they would refer to me as White Lily. So they got me a bag of flour. And she's like, oh my God, that's hilarious. I love it. But yeah, to your point, it's the group. And that's what makes hockey awesome. And it's why we still play. It's, just having fun and staying in the game.
Yeah. It's the same group of guys every Sunday. You're going to have some funny conversations. Things are going to come up, and you're always going to leave that thing smiling. Like we always joke the same thing you said about your crew that you're looking for. It's like, you don't really care if you win. Like, if you win, great.
Yeah.
But we show up an hour before the game and talk, play the game, and stay like an hour afterwards. And that's what you have more fun doing that than, hockey's great, don't get me wrong, but you're there just for the community of connecting with like-minded people, right? Everyone needs that.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, you become family too. One of our teammates just lost his mom, and unfortunately she lived down in Florida, so we couldn't attend the services for her, but it was like, we all just rallied around him. Like, what do you need? He's got a small baby at home. Like, do you need us to come pick her up so you guys can do what you need to do? Right. And, you rally around each other, when times are tough, but when times are good, you guys are right there celebrating it too. With the summer barbecue at somebody's house each year, those kinds of things. And it doesn't help that the rink we play at has the bar and grill above it. So it's like, I had to realize that, because when I was like, first of all, in Minnesota, we played 3 18-minute running period or running time periods. It was great because you're on the ice for an hour. You get out, you get a sweat. So and I still get to the rink an hour early just because that's my habit. Sure. Luckily, this team, some more guys actually show up early, not like my old team where it's like 15 minutes before. I'd be looking around like, well, are we going to have enough to skate tonight? And then by the time the game starts, we have 3 full lines.
Or you have guys, the puck's already dropped and they wait till the first whistle and 6 guys get on the ice.
Like when I was in Minnesota, like you said, almost everybody on the team was firemen. And there was the one game, like 5 minutes before the Zamboni hit the ice, everybody comes walking in. And it's like, did you guys ride the bus together? What's going on? And they're like, no, we were at a fire and it was just about out and time to overhaul. When the chief looked at us, he goes, because the chief was on the team too. He's like, guys, we got a game tonight. We can take care of this. You guys go. I'll stay here. So all the hockey players he relieved from the scene. So like they come walking in, and I know that smell from my dad working, where it's just like you could smell it on them, like they're coming from a bonfire. I'm like,
Right,
oh my
right,
god,
right.
that's hilarious. And that there was another game where I could see the flames in the neighborhood, and I sent a text to one of my buddies. He was like, so is it going to be a light bench tonight? And he goes, no, we called mutual aid because we knew we had a game. I was like,
Fair.
smart. So yeah, everybody was there, but this new team, thank God we got a cop on the team, so I always pick on them. But it's like everybody's always there early, and but down here they played 3 running time 25-minute periods.
Hmm.
I'm like,
That's a pretty good
that's a
length.
long game. That's 90 minutes of ice time. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, that's an extra half hour. And I get there an hour before. So that's 2.5 hours plus the 30 minutes to the rink and 30 minutes back. Now I'm at 3.5 hours. So if I go upstairs, my wife's like, why is it when you go to hockey, you're gone half the day? It's 5 hours, you're gone. And I'm like, I just go for a beer after. But then I was like, okay, so now, if I'm going to grab beer after a game, it's like we won our summer championship. I was like, we're going for beers after the game.
Sure.
That's, so I pick and choose now when I go upstairs. But the other thing I like about this rink is if you go upstairs and I think it's like $20, you tell them what time your game's at and what locker room you're in. They'll bring a tub of beers down to the locker room for you. So you got ice cold locker room beers. And I find we don't spend as much time after the game if we have locker room beers as if we go upstairs where there's wings and nachos and fries. If it's just if you can drink that beer while taking your equipment off, you don't stay as long.
Yeah, that's true. That's something that our rinks in Columbus need to do. It's funny, they actually have a liquor license, but they've had it for the longest period of time, and everyone knows it. But they've never opened up a bar or restaurant in any of the rinks. It's like, it seems to me like such an obvious thing to do. You open up a little grill that has, just a deep fryer with some chicken tenders and fries, and then you have 2 choices of beer on tap. Like, they would clean up. Throw an extra $20 a game of team fees on everybody, and you get a case of beer put in your locker room or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what our league does. I think it's like an extra 20 on the league fee, and the first pitcher is free. It's basically a buy one, get one. You don't just go up there, get the free pitcher, and leave. You got to buy one, and they'll give you the other pitcher. And they got really good wings. But I've learned down in Atlanta, pretty much everybody has good wings.
Right.
It's, a staple down here. But it's like they got wings, nachos, and fries. I think they got some sandwich on their menu. That's it. So it's not like they have a huge kitchen, huge options, but it's just like, it's perfect, and there's the concession stand downstairs, but you go upstairs and you can get your beer or your mixed drink. And I don't know why more rinks don't do it. Now, do the rinks in Columbus frown upon the locker room beers or the parking lot beers? I asked that because when I moved down here, 3 of the rinks frown upon the locker room beers because of liability. But they said the parking lot beers are okay. So...
because it wasn't inside of their
facility. It's not inside. So guys will literally bring like the little, Smoky Joe grills, and they'll grill to get these early enough. At the rink my son works at, I've showed up a couple times and like the one team will bring a projector if there's a hockey game on TV and like project it on the side of the building.
Yeah.
And then the rink that just shut down, they frowned on both the locker room and the parking lot beers because they had a bar up upstairs. But the problem is the bar was always closed during beer league games. So it was like, guys, if you're not gonna stay open to like make easy money, at least let us have the parking lot beer. In the rink I skate at in Duluth, they allow the locker room beers. They just prefer come from them. But if you bring it from home, like, don't be obvious about it, because like one of the guys I skate with, he homebrews, so once he sees, he'll bring a little 5-gallon keg of whatever he brewed for the season. And,
Right.
they're like, just don't be obvious about it and don't be, so they're like, so for them, they don't like the parking lot beers because they're like, there's plenty of options inside. You don't need to be mowing around our already small parking lot. So it's like,
plus they want to make the revenue on it.
Yeah. So in Columbus, it's just kind of like, we don't want to know about it.
So it started like when I first started playing beer league, it was the like wink, wink, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like we know it's happening, and then it was always this like unwritten rule that you would take the cans, you would put the cans in your bag and throw them out when you get home or whatever, because the kids were using the rink as well. They didn't want to have a bunch of beer cans in the same trash can that the kids were seeing.
And then they did their job and emptied the cans at the end of the night like they're supposed to, it wouldn't be a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it got to the point where like they were getting so mad about it that they were putting these passive aggressive signs on the trash bins that was like, hey, no throwing adult beverages in the trash can. If you need help understanding what this means, contact the front desk. And then they went to this thing where they're like, absolutely no beer. Like they would like want to like check people's bags. That happened for about 2 weeks. And then they just stopped caring. Yeah. Now people will literally walk in with like, like a backpack or a cooler. And as long as they don't visually see something that has like, a Bud Light logo on it or whatever, you can walk in with a cooler and they don't care. And you can throw it out in the trash can now. So, I don't know. No one knows.
When I was skating at the Super Rink in Minnesota, they would literally put a social media post out that it's time to sign up for the next session by the commissioner of the league shotgunning a beer in a locker room. So that was their feeling on it. Like, we know it's beer league. You're going to bring, like, just be adults about it.
Right.
One of the other rinks nearby did have a bar and grill in there. So their thing was, we prefer you to go up there and have your beverages so that we, they get the revenue. But if you are going to do it in the locker room, take the cans with you. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Just clean
up. But most of the rinks there were cool with it because it's part of the fabric of life there.
Yeah.
And so when I got down here and like the whole idea of locker room beers not being allowed, I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah, like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
We had one point of time where, and this is like 2 years ago, the commissioner sent out an email to the entire league with like a graph of penalty minutes over the last few years. And that's like an unprecedented spike in penalty minutes across the league. And it was this, this whole message about like beer league is not about hanging out with your friends and, having a beer and stuff like that. It's for athletic
exactly
endeavor.
What it is.
Yeah. It's like it's an athletic endeavor, and it's all about, continuing your skill of hockey and stuff like that. And that, absolutely no beer will be tolerated if the refs even smell beer on you or know that you drink beer. Like, your team will be kicked out of the league and like all this stuff. And everybody just thought it was the funniest thing in the world, and no one took it seriously.
Yeah. Did that guy think the Live Barn scouts were watching too, or what?
I don't know.
Yeah,
but obviously nobody took it seriously. Like, okay, you're gonna kick out a team, and now you're gonna lose those few $1,000s worth of revenue. I doubt it.
And I struggle sometimes talking about beer league hockey because we talk about the beers all the time, and it could sound to the outsider like we all have drinking problems. But it's No, I can honestly say in all the years I've been playing beer league hockey, I've never had a teammate like get drunk after.
No.
It's just like you have your one or two, and it's the conversation afterwards, and because you have that beverage in your hand, it just you're drinking it a little bit slower because you're talking, and it creates that community. And I've had some teammates that are sober, and everything else, and And so we make sure, okay, what do you drink? And the one guy, it was a orange Gatorade he liked. So, we always made sure we had orange Gatorades when he was around. We got a kid on the team now that it's not that he doesn't drink, it's just he doesn't really like the taste of it. So,
It doesn't care for it. Yeah.
every now and then we're like, you coming upstairs? No, I don't drink. And we're like, but they have more than just beer up there. Like, what are you going to have? And it's funny because his dad's on the team too. And every now and then he's like, Brian, you're coming upstairs. You're going to have a pop and you're going to have a good time. And he's like, okay. It's like, it's about the community aspect of it. So I want to shift gears because we've been talking a while and I'm enjoying it. But
I've got nothing else to do. It's all good. End of my day.
Yeah. The way I came across you, as I said, is your YouTube channel. Because I think like a lot of people in COVID just started doing more and more projects around the house. I'd done other stuff before, but that's when it was like, let's just do more of it. And we basically redid a lot of our old house in Minnesota. In fact, I threw my back out building a 4-foot tall, 89-foot long retaining wall so that we could have a backyard ice rink during COVID. Because each one of those blocks was about 80 pounds, I think it was. And we had to move from the front of the house to the back of the house. It was.
And you weren't lifting it correctly, I know.
I was trying to use my, bend with the knees, not with the back, but that many blocks, it was inevitable. But, I did think about the engineering side of it because we didn't do the digging. I knew a guy had a dingo from a landscaping company. He came and did all the digging. And he's like, I can build the wall for you too. He's like, yeah, but I can save myself 20 grand doing it myself. He's like, okay, yeah, true. Because he knew me. And he's like, but I'll do the backfill. He's like, just make sure you leave enough room for, the rock behind it. And it's like, oh, trust me, I will. And whatever the recommended spacing was, I tripled it.
Right.
And made sure there was big enough drain tile and everything else. He's like, he came back to backfill and he was like, well, I can tell you right now, this thing's never coming down because of ice thaw. That's for sure. He's like, you over engineered this thing. But again, as I was learning different things, and even after the move down here, I just started watching more and more videos. Like you, Bourbon Moth.
Jason's a good friend of mine.
Yeah. Jason, I'm blanking on his name. He's out in Nashville. Was it Mr. Fix-It? All the regulars. I'll put it that way. I watch all those guys and came across yours. And one of the things I loved about you is, you were just building in a one-car garage. The small of spaces you can have with all of the tools, but still making it work. But the backstory of, you lived in an apartment and you just started working in the parking lot.
Parking lot. Yeah.
So, it proved that you don't need this great big shop to do the projects. Space is nice. That's for sure. I know for me, the thing I hate, I've been working on my son's room and built a window seat for his room this weekend. And it's like, every cut I make, I'm going up the stairs and then taking it back down the stairs onto the garage. That's sort of like, that's the one nice thing for new construction. And they can just set the table saw up in the next room and work. But, and the other thing you've done is, you got some of the nice Festool tools and all of that stuff. But some of your videos you do with the basic tools, the tools that everybody should have to show you don't need to have Jason's workshop to do your projects. You don't, the right tools make a big difference, but there's a lot of different tools to get there. It's just, don't be stupid about what you're using. Don't use a drywall screw gun to, put in your pocket screws.
Right.
There's a difference there. So that's what I have appreciated about your channel, and now the workshop's evolving, so I'm excited to see how that works.
Yeah, it's definitely growing. It was my apartment garage that
Yeah.
had, you might have heard the story, but I don't know if anybody else
Hmm.
has. I had one outlet with no access to the breaker panel. So if I wanted to like charge some like a cordless drill battery and then run the table saw, can't do that. You're gonna blow the breaker. If you wanted to turn on like a vacuum to suck up the dust and run the table saw, uh-uh, can't do that. So I had so many limitations. I had no heat, I had no air conditioning, and all of this had to be a secret because it was very, and I share this now because I don't live there anymore. Um, all that had to be a secret because it was very explicitly in the lease that like you may not run tools or anything in the garage just strictly for parking a car or storage of
Yeah.
whatever you want to store. So I was running for like 5 years, running this business out of the apartment garage, completely stealth. And now I've got my wife and I bought a house this fall, got a 2-car garage. So I spent time insulating the whole garage, putting drywall up, renovating it, and putting a heat pump. So I've got heating and cooling in there now. And man, it is nice, but kind
Yeah,
of like what
you went with the Mr. Cool, didn't you? The mini split.
Mhm,
Yep.
mhm,
Yep.
yeah.
My wife works in the HVAC industry, commercial side of it. So, and she's like, I don't know why more people just don't put mini splits all over their house rather than, you know, it makes so
They're
much
not that
sense.
expensive.
No,
And it was like
no.
on okay, full transparency. I did a YouTube video. I'm fortunate enough that I'm able to reach out to brands and sponsors and whatnot like that.
Yeah.
So they provided it. But
Yep.
like even so, like I think one of those units is like $2,000.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
I looked at one for my garage because being down in the South now, I mean, everybody's like, oh, the humidity. It's like, I come from Minnesota where we had 18,000 lakes. And in the summer, that gets pretty humid, but
Mhm.
it's just a longer time
Right.
of the humidity. I'm like, I've kind of been thinking through, like, all right, there's a spot here where I can put the conditioner.
Right.
It's near a power source, so I've been toying with putting one in my garage.
It's honestly, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Even with filming it, which at least 4 or 5 X's, whatever length of thing that
Yep.
you're doing.
Yep.
It only took me like 5 or 6 hours to install it. Like, I think if you weren't filming, which most people are not gonna be filming
Yeah.
installing a mini split. If you weren't filming it, I think if you already had the power run, so if you had like a service disconnect right there, you could probably install this thing in 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it looks very, very, I don't want to say easy, but DIY friendly.
Oh,
But,
for sure.
so are you turning both two stalls into the workshop and, uh,
Yeah.
telling your wife, like, hey, I know we got a garage, but we're going to be parking out in the cold Ohio winters and the
Yeah.
hot summers.
I'm very fortunate that my wife is in full support of the business that we're running,
Yep.
and she's very supportive and lets me take over the garage and doesn't ask, never even once asked, like, "Do you think you could slide things to the side? Like, let me put my car in there?" No, she's super supportive, so I'm super lucky about that
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah,
But
I know this weekend I had everything just all out in the garage, and then those major storms were coming through where they're talking possible tornadoes. I'm like, I got to clean up tonight so we can at least get one car in the garage in case there's hail.
yeah, yeah.
That's the only time where I'm like, all right, there might be hail tonight. I should try and put the car in the garage. Or last year when it was a tropical storm when it came through here, but when Helene came through, I was like, all right, I really need to clean the garage and get both cars in the garage.
Yeah.
That's the only time where I'm like, all right, yeah, we got to do something.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta figure stuff out, but I
Yeah.
mean, all in all, it works. She's super supportive, and, the thing is, and you probably understand this. Anybody else that, like, you watch stuff online of people building stuff or DIY things. You see people have all these tools. You don't need it.
No.
I liken it to hockey gear, right? Something that other people can understand. You know that if you need a new pair of skates, you could go buy the lowest level Bauer pair of skates and you could play hockey with them.
Yeah.
However, you know that if you step up to the higher level, the intermediate, the elite, the pro level stuff, it is inherently the exact same product.
Yep.
What you are getting is these teeny, tiny details in the grand scheme of things that make your life so much easier, right?
Yep.
It's the same product, though.
Yeah.
And then you go from a $200 pair of skates to a $1,200 pair of skates. It's the same thing. But once you really, really get into it, you know that you don't want that $200 pair of skates.
Yeah. I think it was the video I was watching this weekend from, was it Bent's Woodworking?
Oh, Jason. Jason's a great friend of mine.
And he had the two different sanders, and they were both festival. Was like, what's the, this one's 200, this one's 400. What's the difference? And it was like, and he just had a small sample size, and it was like 30 seconds is the difference. But when you're doing a full project, that 30 seconds adds up to, maybe an hour plus of your time, so it's like, do they do the same thing? Yes. It's just how valuable is that added feature to you, and can you afford it?
Right. And I'm extremely fortunate that I've been able to build up the business to where I'm able to afford tools that save me time, because the more time I save, the more videos I can put out for everybody to watch. So like, sure, could I build everything that I'm building with the lowest level craftsman tools that you buy at the big box store? Absolutely. And I've done it many times, but it's going to take me longer, and I'm not going to get as many videos out. So I've invested money into stuff that makes my life faster and more efficient and easier to produce the videos that I put out. I mean, it's just kind of what it is. And I know it upsets people because it, just like hockey gear, it's like, oh, well, I can't afford that. It's out of my realm. It's like, I totally understand that, but you don't need that $1,200 pair of skates. You can show up to beer league with a used, pair of skates from Play It Again Sports.
Work your way up.
You're welcome. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of been my thing too, is, do I spend the money on that tool that I'm going to use one time for just this project or not?
No.
When I was doing the floors upstairs, we're doing engineered hardwood. I'm only going to do upstairs until, I'm not going to do floors again until we move again. But I went out and bought the guillotine for doing
little snap
laminate floor because of the time it saved. Rather than walking downstairs to the miter saw, cutting each piece, was like just boom, and it didn't have the dust afterwards. It was just a nice clean cut. And my wife's like, was it? And it really wasn't that expensive, but she's like, was it worth it? It's like, you have no idea. Like I got an entire room and hallway done in a day rather than just the hall. It was like,
what's your time worth, right?
Yep, exactly. And you're able to monetize your projects. I'm not monetizing
very
myself.
Fortunate.
I've tried to set up the camera a few times, just for my own purposes, and I'm like, I don't have time for this.
Harder than you think,
right? Because you start working on the project and you just want to keep going. You don't want to stop and change. It's like after every cut, I'm like, no, I just want to keep going. My ADD is set in. I need to keep going. And so, for you, if you've got that tool that allows you that time to do it, okay, cool. And again, the monetize side of it, like you said, you were able to work with Mr. Cool. I know Festool works with a lot of the folks out there. Yeah. Because they do have an expensive product, but I've yet to meet anybody with Festool that has had an issue with their Festool. And if they do, they send it back and they get it fixed and it's sent back to them. And
within 2 days.
Yeah, I mean, it's great customer service. The only tool I say that is worth investing in, and kind of upgrading is your circular saw. get the track saw. Once I got the track
Oh,
saw, it was like, oh my God, it's a life changer. Like you could theoretically get rid of your table saw if you had to,
yeah.
and just go with the track saw, and then invest in the longer track for your 4x8 sheets of plywood, so you're not splicing them things together.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know what a track saw is, a circular saw is like a handheld saw that you'd see
Yep.
most guys in construction sites. You might have seen like your dad, have one. But the problem is you start cutting and you want to get on a straight line. This thing starts wandering all over the place. So what some people do is just like lay down like a level and then run their circular saw against it.
Yeah.
That works. Or they have this thing called a track saw, which is like this aluminum thing that you set down. It's razor straight. And then it's just, you see that line on that track? That's where you're cutting. So you literally just put the track down anywhere, run the saw on it. It won't move off, and you got perfectly straight cuts anywhere. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I used to do the level thing, but somehow I'm a goalie. I hit the head too many times with hockey pucks. So sometimes my measurement from the level to where the blade was,
Yeah.
sometimes I measure to the wrong side of the blade. Well, with the track
Yeah.
saw, you just set the track up right where
Zip.
you want that cut. And
Yeah.
now, the one thing you have to remember is, are you setting the track on the outside of the cut or the inside? That's
Right.
the one thing I'm like, even as a goalie, I was smart enough to think about that this last weekend when I was working on the drawers and stuff. It's like, okay, but I can say it's because of watching videos like yours and Bourbon Moth and Mr. Fix It, all these other ones, that I was able to build that window box this weekend with confidence. And I did, some shaker drawer fronts with, and I did undermount drawer slides, because as you learn watching any one of the different videos that are out there, if you're not using undermounts, you're just a peasant.
It's because it makes everything easier and they look nicer.
They do. And like, I was looking at it of the weight load, because it's going to be for my son, so I know it's going to get abused.
Sure.
So I'm like, all right, but it's because of watching the videos that I was able to. I've done some cool stuff in his room that I hadn't done before. Actually, what we did, his room had a closet that should have had bifold doors, but it just had a regular door right in the middle. So like half the closet was just really hard to use. And then there was, right next to the closet, pass through to the bathroom. And so right when we moved in, I walled that off just to give him a little more privacy. So he essentially had like these two closets for a while. So we completely opened that up. And of course, it had to be a load-bearing wall. So I had to put a nice beefy header in. So I did that.
Mm-hmm.
And then since it was next to a bathroom, there was no insulation in the wall. So I tore the drywall off, put some sound dampening insulation, and then I put some more outlets in so that the TV can be up on the wall and some stuff down below. Then I ran wiring in a light switch so that there's two down lights, and they're the nice new, they're that thick, the new LEDs that just clip right in.
Wafers, yeah.
Yeah, but they're the ones where you turn them on, you got the full light, you turn them off and turn them back on, and you got that halo of a nightlight around it.
Yeah.
So I put those in, then I put 4 more in the main bedroom. But so the new opening, I was looking at it and I was like, what's wrong? It's like, I feel like we should do arches in the corner. And she's like, yes, that would be amazing. I was like, I knew I should have kept my mouth shut because I have not done that one yet. And I hate doing mudding work to begin with. But yeah, I went in, I put the arches in and, got it. And then I'm going to have a floating desk. And again, I know my son, he'll try and sit on it and everything else. So I got those metal supports that attach to the 2x4 where it's metal that and comes out. So there's 4 of them. So then again, drywalling back, getting, the perfect measurement to, and of course that whole nook, as I'm calling it, the desk nook, is like 10 feet 2 inches. But because of the opening, I was able to use take a 12-foot piece of drywall and cut it down. But to get it in the opening, we had to like bend it.
Yeah, did the old bend.
But then we had those supports kind of, so it was a delicate dance, and somehow it all lined up. But it's like it's been fun working on the room. It's taken a little bit longer than we had hoped, just because thinking through different things. The plan has changed so many times. I started in SketchUp in that little area. There's going to be closet on the right, TV desk on the left, and then we're like, no, let's flank his window with closet systems. And I went out and I should say my wife ordered 2 pack systems go on either side of the windows, and I with face frames making it look built in, creating my own shaker doors to match, and then I built the bench seat to go in between the two under the window with the pull out drawers, and then I'm going to put a not a cabinet, but like a shelf up above so he can put his Legos, because like right now his Saturn V is in my office. So he's going to be able to put some of his Legos and other stuff up there. But it's been fun, and he can't wait to get it done, and I can't wait to get him out of the spare bedroom because he's just like throwing his clothes everywhere.
See, that's what I like to call the DIY lie.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, can knock that out in a weekend. It's going to take you way longer than you think.
Yeah.
You're going to buy all of these tools, and then you're going to be like, it would have just been cheaper to hire somebody to do it.
Well, and then when you're a true DIYer, every project in your house is about 90 to 95% finished before you start the next one.
Oh, yeah.
So in my office, my office on the other side of the camera, I have to do the wainscoting my wife now wants in my office on the other side. When we moved in, we completely gutted and blew up our kitchen because it was a tiny kitchen. So we took down the wall, made it bigger. And in fact, where I'm sitting was a formal sitting room, and we didn't need a room we would never need, and we didn't need a formal dining room to use twice a year. So my father-in-law actually put this wall up before he passed away, and so we made the sitting room a little bit smaller, perfect size office. I built everything behind me, and then I did the whole kitchen, the wiring, everything. And then I did my wife's office. So it's just like, but in the kitchen, there's the scribed piece under the farmhouse sink that I still need to do. And now my wife wants paneling on some of the walls. My wife's office, I have to caulk around the ceiling tiles. So it's like each room I can go and say, yeah, it looks done, but this still needs to be done.
And the reason you never I know everybody's like, just finish the damn project. It's like, well, that part of it isn't exciting, but starting this new one, you're pulling me that way. So it's very easy for you to put off caulking around the ceiling, because you could build a new bathroom vanity, and that's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Try something you've never done before.
Yeah. And what's fun is my kids get older, they've been helping in some of these projects. So for my son's room, I'm like, you're going to help as much as your schedule allows. He's got school, he's got baseball and work, so he helped with the demo work, and he really liked pulling drywall down, and he's, he helped with the painting and some of the stuff there. We built a small retaining wall out back, and then we did our own paver patio. And I was like, it's not that hard. I was like, technically no, but we were doing it in the height of Georgia heat and humidity. So like, I think I lost 8 pounds doing paver patio, but like the kids, they did all the digging to prep the groundwork, and as we were working, we had to move, I think it was 12 tons of rock, and they helped move and of course, because the Bobcat couldn't get through our gate, they could drop the big bags right at the gate. So we had to it wasn't just shoveling it out of the bag. It was shoveling into the wheelbarrowing it down, so they helped move those 12 tons of rock. And then as I'm laying the paper patio, I'm calling out the numbers, because we had 3 different sizes. Like, I need a 1, I need a 2, I need a 3.
Right.
And there's like different colors. So I'm like, give me a 1 dark or a 2 light, because we want it to look random. And of course, we get this nice big patio done. And when we bought the house, we were told we were on a community septic. I'm like, that, I understand some places have them, but I'm like, I don't see any pipes or anything. So I wasn't sure. And up in the Midwest, you see a septic tank, you see a big mound, and you see the
Right.
pipes coming out. Down
like, a
here, that's
sewer
not the
cap.
coast. Our neighbors were having some sewer issues, and so 2 doors down, and the neighbor next door, he's like, "Yeah, you might want to get yours pumped." We're like, "Wait a minute, what?" And he goes, "Yeah, we're all on our own private septic here," and we're like, "That was not in the disclosures," and so we didn't know where it was, and we wound up finding it under the one side of the paver patio. So I had to pull. So that is literally the next project after I finish my son's room of repairing the paver patio, because I had to pull half of it up so that we could find, because we weren't really sure. We did finally find it. So rather than redo the whole thing, I'm just going to make it smaller so that when we have to have that pumped every few years, we don't have to worry about it. But it was like, the patio looked so good, and then I had to pull a part of it up.
That's
that's
devastating though, because you did all that work yourself, and you're like, I'm so proud of it, and
like, it didn't settle or anything. We did such a good job, and the worst part was the septic company came. They're like, "We believe we've located it, but it's going to be like right here." So I pull up all these blocks. They come back and they start poking down. Nope, it's actually further over here. So I literally pulled. I only need to pull up maybe a third, not even, maybe a quarter, and I want to pull up half of the patio I put down. And I'm like, well, at least it'll be easier to put down the second time because I know what I'm doing.
Right. But see, here's the thing. Now you don't want to do it because you've already done the project. It's not exciting to you anymore because it's not something new, and it's not a new endeavor. You're basically just redoing work you already did.
Yeah, it's when you're redoing work that it kind of sucks. But I mean, we're getting close to finish here, because after I finish my son's room, I just have to do trim and flooring in the guest bedroom, and then by that time, my daughter will be off to college in the fall, and I'm gonna redo her whole room because she needs some bookshelves and just make her room more usable, flooring, trim, all that. And I just have to do trim and flooring in my bedroom. Then we go down in the basement where my mother-in-law is, and I need to give her a nice walk-in closet, because the previous owner, like, they finished the basement, but the one room that's down there is like this super long, weirdly shaped, not even, it's just weirdly long room. So like, we can give you a really nice walk-in closet.
Yeah.
For all, because my mother-in-law loves cowboy boots, so she's got, I think, like 42 pairs, so she needs somewhere for them all to go. And we're like, we'll do that here, and there is water and a drain right there, and so we're going on the other side of it too, a nice little like coffee bar for her. So she doesn't always have to come upstairs to, all of that stuff. She's like, yes. So it's like, the projects are slowing down, and I told my wife, I just want them to slow down so that we can actually. It's not that I don't enjoy the work, but it's like, let's enjoy the weekends together. Let's, like, one of the reasons we moved down here is like, you draw an 8-hour drive circle around Minneapolis, St. Paul, you get to Chicago, you get to Milwaukee, you get to the Dakotas, you draw an 8-hour driving circle around Atlanta, you get to a lot of cool places.
You're everywhere, right?
Yeah. And so it's like, let's start taking some of those weekend trips we talked about almost 2 years ago. Right. Yeah, I mean, I've been out to visit my dad. He lives in basically Wilmington, North Carolina, right on the ocean. But it's like, we got a nephew that's down in Jacksonville in the Navy now. It's like, let's go visit him. Let's go, let's go to New Orleans and get some beignets one weekend because they're amazing.
Ooh, yeah.
It's like there's so many cool places, and so it's like, let's start doing that and not just working on the house. And she's like, yeah, we need to do that. So. But we've been talking a while, and I end every episode with a list of 10 questions, or the same questions I've asked every guest, from Kelly Rudy, Eddie Balfour, Grant Fuhr, down to youth goalies I've had on. So everybody's answered the same 10 questions.
All right, let's hear them.
The first one is, what's the craziest coaching moment from your playing days where a coach just went crazy, like Mike Keenan throwing the sticks on the ice cream, just losing his temper?
I don't have anything that's just like, this is like embarrassing. A coach just lost it. But when I was in 8th grade, the best man of my wedding, obviously I wasn't married in 8th grade.
Well, you
that
are
would
kind
be
of close to those Pennsylvania Dutch.
yeah, that would be a story, right? No, the best thing at my wedding, I was on a hockey team with him in 8th grade, and his dad was our coach. Well, his dad was trying to get us all riled up because, long story short, we entered into a tournament that we didn't realize that we entered in the wrong league, the wrong level. So we were playing way above our level. Somehow
Yeah.
we made it to the championship game, right? So he's trying to get us all fired up. And this is back in the day where you had like the candy bar cell phones, you know, where the green
Yeah.
screen with the dark green letters. And he was trying to like get us all riled up in a speech and stuff like that. And his phone starts ringing, and he's getting all flustered because he can't get out of his pocket and stuff like that. And he finally gets it out and just spikes it on the floor, right, to try to like show that he doesn't care and he's so involved. Well, it hits my leg pad. And so it doesn't break or anything like that. It just keeps ringing, and then he tries to like stomp on it. And again, it's on my leg pad because, like, you know, you just took it off
Yeah.
your shin. It's lying right in front of you, and it's so well padded that it like won't break and just continues to ring. And we like, I'm still good friends with his dad, and so like we still, you know, josh around with him about that all the time. I'd say that's probably my craziest coach story. I never really had anybody like throwing things on the ice or anything like that.
It's funny you tell that story. When I was coaching, I mean, iPhones hadn't come out yet, but you know,
No.
kids had their Blackberries, you know, with text where, you know, you had to hit the number 3 times to get to the letter you wanted.
Oh yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and so we're in the locker room between periods, and it wasn't going well for us. And somebody's phone starts ringing. It was understood when you're in the locker room, you turn your phone off, and the phone's ringing. And so now, you know, now I just lose it. I was like, how many times we got to tell you to turn off your effing phones?
Right.
You know, this and that and everything else. And we go out and this phone's, you know, kids are checking their pocket, phone's still going off. And then, you know, we're done with the kids. We walk out of the locker room, and I pull my phone out of my pocket.
Was it yours?
It was my phone. I didn't.
Yeah.
So as us coaches, we thought it was hilarious. You know,
Sure.
we didn't dare tell the players
No,
that it was
no,
one of
you're
our
not going to own up
phones.
to that. Come on now.
Yeah, but we're like, okay, that's pretty funny. So the next question is, what's your favorite all-time goalie mask?
Goalie mask?
Yeah.
Oh man. I can't think of any like right off the top of my head, but I remember, you know, in 2nd, 3rd grade, the USA Hockey, you know, you would sign up for the membership thing or whatever, and they
Yeah.
would send you those magazines you'd flip through. I
Yeah.
remember how there was one issue where they gave you like the both side profiles and then the front profile of like a goalie mask, and they wanted you to basically like draw your own and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I remember thinking how cool it would have been I don't remember who had it. It might have been Hobby Boolin to like have like the bricks on like the
Yeah.
brick wall on my goalie mask. I feel like that's my most memorable goalie mask thing. It's just
Yeah.
like trying to design my own in 2nd grade or whatever. I'm sure it looked terrible.
Hobby Bullen had the wall on there being the Bullen wall, but then I remember Stefan Fissé with the Quebec Nordiques, probably before your time, had like an igloo wall on his, and the Nordiques logo was crashing through the forehead, and it was such a cool mask. Yeah, that was a pretty cool one. But yeah, the brick wall on a goalie mask is always classic.
Yeah. See, I never had a painted mask. You know, I was
Mhm.
lucky enough to be able to play hockey. So I think the closest I had to a painted mask was like getting a sticker that I put on the side of it or something. It was
Yeah.
like my high school sticker or whatever. I
Yeah.
never had a painted mask, unfortunately.
I've had 2. This was my high school mask, my old pro mask, and we were the Crusaders. So I
Oh, I
literally
like that.
I went to the airbrush shop in the mall, again, showing my age. And I was like, do you guys paint goalie masks? And they're like, I've painted helmets before. I'll give it a try. And so, I mean, it was cool. You know, it was
Yeah.
the late 90s, and, you know, it turned out decent. So then when I was in college, the internet was, a thing by that point.
Right.
So
Right.
I found a place out of Canada and I set my college mask up and, I think it was only like $250. I got to find the camera here. And so that was our school logo. We were the
Okay.
Cardinals.
Yeah.
And so, just the Cardinal and then the, sticks meeting at the middle. But now that I've got a kid and 2 kids and a house and a mortgage and everything, it's like, could I get my current mask painted? Yeah. But when I look at the price of it, to get it done by a good painter, I'm like, all black works with my equipment too, because I got
Right.
red, white, and black stuff. And
Right.
I don't know,
Do
maybe
you
one
really
day.
need that right now? It's like,
Yeah, maybe one day it'd be cool, but I'm
be
like,
nice to have.
and I know guys like Jason Livery, who I had on last episode, and Kyle Conan down in Tampa. So some of these mask painters I've had on are like, "What are you saying, Joe?" But it's like, I want to. I just have other priorities at the moment, like my next tool.
Sure. Right. Right.
Right.
I get it.
So, what is your favorite rink that you've played at?
Oh man, I think the coolest rink I played at was Yost Arena up in. I'm pretty sure that's still the arena for University
Yeah.
of Michigan, right?
Yep. Yeah. There's some talks of it being replaced, but I think it's going to take some time.
I just remember like being on the ice, and that's I don't know if you've been there before.
No, I haven't.
It's very narrow and very tall, so like it
Mm-hmm.
feels like people are on top of the rink
Mm-hmm.
if the people are in the upper deck, and it's the weirdest feeling in the world. But it was also a super nice rink too.
Yeah. I remember when I was coaching high school hockey, the one goalie I had my first year, Dustin Carlson. I was like, "So what are your plans after high school? Because you are good enough to play after high school." And he's like, "I want to play for the University of Michigan and play at Yost Arena."
All
I was
right.
like, "All right." So he went, he played some junior hockey, and he wound up going to the Ohio State and playing for the Buckeyes.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he's like, and so I talked to him, I had him on the podcast. He goes, "But I got to play at Yost Arena." So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's like,
Hey, you still got
I
the goal.
fulfilled my dream. He goes, I just played for the other school. And, so now he hates Michigan and everything else. And he was in Columbus for many years and was their goalie coach until he's coaching in junior hockey now. But it was funny. I was like, "So you remember when you told me you wanted to go to the University of Michigan and you wound up at Ohio State?" And he started laughing.
Right.
He's like, "Yeah." So what is your favorite goalie stick you've ever used?
Oh man, I'm banging my head against the wall for not buying more of them. It was the Mike Smith curve. I don't know if you've ever used any of his sticks, but he's
Not
just got.
his, but I remember it.
It's like using a sand wedge. Like you get the puck off the heel, and as soon as it's up off the heel, you're sending that thing 15 feet in the air. It was my favorite stick, and
Yep.
I bought like a dozen of them in high school. And then as I aged out of, my competitive years of hockey, I was like, I don't need to go buy all these sticks. Well, I have not been able to find them in years. And I'm just
Yep.
like, you use all these basic curves now that P31 or whatever the hell it is. And I'm like, it's just not the same. It's just like I can't handle the puck like I used to.
You should check out Pro Stock Hockey. They're probably not going to have the Smith curve, but they get a lot of the pro stock returns.
Yeah.
Like when a player gets traded or something. So they get some of those goofy ones. In fact, I always wanted to try a trigger grip on my goalie stick, but I didn't want to cut into my stick and ruin it. And I've always used a larger stick than I should. And it goes back to the very first goalie stick that I owned that was an association provided was a Titan San Jose Sharks teal and white goalie stick, but it was a senior stick. So I'm this little squirt, using a senior stick. So I always got used to a taller paddle. So I was using like a 27-inch paddle for the longest time. And then I saw Colin Delia Pro Return, and it had the trigger grip because he used trigger grips on Pro Stock Hockey. But it was, I want to say, a 25-inch paddle, 24-inch paddle. I'm like, you know what? I've been reading more and more and hearing on the In-Goal podcast that shorter paddles are actually better for when you're down in the butterfly and stuff. I was like, I'll give it a try. If I don't like it, I at least have a stick with the trigger grip where I can use a router bit with the flush mount, bit on there and replicate it on a taller paddle. Like that was my idea. Well, I loved the shorter paddle, and I had only gotten the one stick. I'm like, shit. So eventually another one came up on there. And what was even great is when he was traded out of Chicago, so they were red, white, and black, so they matched my pads,
nice.
the sticks. And so then, my current one was getting a little raggedy, and I saw there was on the GGSU goalie Facebook page, this guy works at a pro shop, and they had a bunch of different pro returns. And I saw that he had a Delia. I was like, well, yeah, can I get it? He's like, well, how many do you want? I was like, how many do you have? He's like, I got like 2 dozen. I was like, I'll take 2. I don't need 2 dozen because I've been lucky, knock on wood, that my sticks last because I'm not breaking them out of anger anymore.
Yeah,
so I'm like,
years now in beer league.
Yeah, two sticks should last me a couple of years, and if at that point I can't find another, I can again use the router and replicate it.
Right.
Yeah. So what's your favorite youth hockey memory?
Youth hockey memory?
Yeah.
Man, it's probably my first year of organized hockey. I was 6 or 7. You signed up for like the house league or whatever, and that was the only time in my entire years of competitive hockey that I ever won a championship. We run like whatever the all city championship thing or whatever. The first year I was like, that's pretty cool. Good way to start.
Yeah.
Never got another one.
Yeah. Yep. I never really won a league title. In fact, my freshman year of high school, we went 0-20 in league play. And the next year we got better and we went 1-18-1 in league play. But I mean, in Chicago, I mean, that was in the Catholic League. So but we were playing 20 non-conference games. We did all right non-conference, but league play, the Catholic League in the late 90s was no joke. But it wasn't until college, the MIAC actually at the time had a postseason for the JV. And I wasn't playing, but the team still won the postseason tournament. So it was like, at least the last time I had the college sweater on, we won, but it was like, I didn't really win it, and so when we won the summer beer league last year, like that was the first real, and like the league I'm in, they have a cool trophy. It's not a traveling trophy. It's the same one they hand out to the D League, to the Elite A League. It's just, it stays at the arena. But you get to lift it after the game. And it's got a spaghetti strainer on the top. But it's like, yeah, we won that thing. And I was like, why did they have to put a strainer on there? You can't even drink out of it. It makes no sense.
Why.
Right. And one of the guys like, I think that's why they put it on there. It's like, I get it, but come on. But yeah, that was fun. So what's the best chirp you've heard on the ice, off the ice, directed at you, not directed at you?
Oh, man. I mean, there's a whole litany of ones that would not be family friendly or politically friendly or anything of that nature. I can't think of anyone specifically, but I always give the most credit to the ones that are the most elegant and most simple. Not something that's like a 4-sentence thing, maybe like a couple words, and you're like, that was accurate, Yeah. I'm blanking. I can't come up with anyone specifically, but definitely the simple ones that take a lot of thought and cleverness for sure.
Yep. I like my teammate Benny that I was telling you about earlier. There's a few Russian guys in our league, and there's a French Canadian. And so Benny has learned a few chirps in French and Russian specifically for these players. I was okay. And again, like I said, he learned Latin just because. So like learning a new language is fun for him. So it's like when he brings out the chirps in their native tongues, like there's a little respect by those guys. Like, okay, that was mean, but that was also brilliant that you learned it in my language.
Yeah. I like it. I like
Yeah.
it.
But it's funny you mentioned, the non-politically correct ones. The team I'm on now, we've got an Iranian Canadian and a Black Canadian on the team. So
Okay.
you can imagine some of the things that are said in the locker room, and it's funny because Reza,
I can imagine.
the Iranian fella, he'll say something and then he'll stop and go. He goes, "But that's racist if you guys say it."
Yeah.
It is. It is just. Both guys are just so funny, but it's like, oh my god, if anybody had a microphone in our locker room, we would all be losing our jobs. And we're not even bad people. It's just we
But
get each other.
That's barely everybody
Yeah.
is you'll chirp the guys on your team, and it's just out of good fun. And everybody knows there's no ill intent behind any of the stuff that's being said,
No, and I've said it on the podcast before. If you're in the locker room and you're not getting picked on, that's when you got to worry, because it means they don't like you. And the more you get picked on, the better.
Right.
And the meaner it is, then you just know, you've been accepted.
Yeah, that's fair. But see, like when in the younger, youth age and stuff like that, I was probably the opposite, right? With the whole bullying and stuff like that. But that's not what it is in beer league. Nobody's bullying one another. We're adults here.
Yeah. No, we got one fella on our team, Harlan, and Harlan's a shorter guy. And so we always pick on him for that. The one day he was walking in the rink, and the squirts that were on the ice before us had just gotten their jerseys, and one of the kids forgot his jersey in the locker room, and it was hanging up. And Harlan comes walking in, and we're like, "Harlan, we thought you were already here. Your jersey was up there." And he's like, "You guys are jerks." And, then there was the 1 week, like all the NHL teams, for whatever reason, were like having Make-A-Wish kids out on the ice with them. And Harlan comes walking in the locker room. It's like, "Oh, is this our Make-A-Wish kid for our game this week?" And he's like, "Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you?"
Wow.
As hard as we are on Harlan, he's probably worse. And that's just telling us about his own personal life. So we jokingly said he's in charge of HR for the team.
Hey, you always need HR person on the team.
Yeah. So what's the worst post-game beer?
Oh man. Okay. People are gonna be like, "You're crazy." I despise Bud Light. I think it tastes like bananas and cloves. I can't. I mean, if somebody hands it to me and it's all we have, I'll drink one. But I'm like, oh.
Yeah. It's not my first choice either.
No.
My grandfather, God love him, anything Budweiser, Bud Light, whatever, he just said it was cat piss. And I don't think it's wrong. And this is coming from a guy who, it's not like they had many options in those days either.
Right.
It was like Schlitz, Hams, Budweiser.
Ooh,
and he's like, no, in Chicago we had Old Style. No Yingling that far west. Although I did see Yingling finally made it to Chicago.
Okay. It's been back in Ohio for 20 years, I think.
Yeah, that was one of the things I loved about moving east. I was like, all right, I got a good cheap beer now.
It's as far as cheap beer goes, it's not bad.
Yeah, I think people out west who can't get it regularly think too highly of it. But the reality of what it is it's a good economy beer.
Yeah.
A
little bit of flavor, a little bit more expensive than just like your, 30 pack of Pilsner, but it's not bad.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a very controversial question.
Uh-oh.
When you tape your stick, do you go heel to toe or toe to heel?
Oh, heel to toe for sure.
Okay, you are in the majority. And one of these days, because I'm a data analyst, so
I had to think about it.
I can't believe I haven't done this, but one of these days I'm going to actually chart everybody's answer. But it is overwhelmingly heel to toe, and I will say it's controversial because more than one guest has referred to any goalie who tapes it toe to heel as a psychopath. And
I even got the word right.
Yes. And the funny part is they didn't know the other person had said that either. Now there's one goalie that does tape his stick toe to heel, that gave a reason. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. It's Connor Beaupre. He's the wild e-bug. His dad was Don Beaupre. Well, still is. And he said he likes to play the puck a lot, and he feels that the overlap of the tape works better for playing the puck when he goes toe to heel. There's not as much friction as like, well, Connor, if you've ever seen me play the puck, you'll know that is not an issue for me.
Right.
I'm just happy if I don't turn it over. Although I did get assists the other 2 games ago, but that was merely because I got the puck and, glove on the blade, pushed it over to my defenseman, and he made a beautiful stretch pass for a breakaway, and the guy scored.
Right. Hey, that's still an assist on the score sheet, though.
Technically an assist, yeah. What's your favorite number to wear and why?
I always wore 37. Why? I have no idea. I don't know if it was like in-house league, they'd have a box of jerseys and you just went, I'm gonna grab one, and that was the number you had for the season or whatever. I truly have no idea why.
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you it was because so and so or some historical significance. I have no idea.
Yep, you got it, and you stuck with it. That was I was wearing 35 all through high school, and then I got to college, and our senior varsity goalie wore 35. So they're like, "Yeah, you can't have that number." I was like, "Okay." Yeah. So I went to the cabinet and I found the biggest jersey they had, and I looked like a little kid wearing his dad jersey when I walked out to our rec center for a team stretch. Everybody else has one that fits, and like I got a 12-person tent I'm wearing, and it was 39. So that's just been my number ever since. I was like, all right, there we go.
You stuck with it though.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think my style of play is very much like Dominic Hasek. I think it's more Cujo, but there's some Hasek flair in my game, I'll say, and some of the rollovers and poke checks and stuff. So it fits. And even in my sophomore year of college, I actually had a Hasek helmet after a concussion. I went to the Hasek helmet too with the number 39. It worked well.
Oh, nice! You still have that style helmet?
I wear Bauer NME 8 now, but I have the old Hasek on the shelf over there. The one I wore in college. It's sitting on the shelf.
Oh, I love it.
And what's funny is I wore that thing without a dangler. So my neck was open the whole time. The whole year I wore it, didn't get hit in the neck once. Then after another concussion, I went back to a mask again based on my coaches and parents' pleas. And so until I could get my own mask, I was borrowing one from one of the kids that didn't make the team. And he had, it was a Heaton. In fact, it was the same one I got here.
All right.
And had a longer neck. So like you didn't need a dangler because it just naturally covered it. First practice, a puck just like hits the chest protector and like gets lodged underneath. Like it didn't hurt or sting it or anything, but it was just funny. And I go down and I'm laughing, and the coach comes over. He's like, "You okay?" He's like, "Why are you laughing?" He's like, "I had a whole year. This was all exposed. My first skate back with it all covered." Yeah. And I get hit here. It's like, it's just Murphy's Law, although I still I don't like danglers. And some people are like, is it because of, the rattling? It's like, no, it's because when you look down, I think it obstructs my vision, because sometimes they get foggy, they get condensation. I'm like, I don't like it because of the vision. I don't care about the noise. Yeah. But a couple of weeks ago, I took a slap shot and it wound up hitting me right here, and it bruised up right away and hurt a little bit. So I did go back. I do have the neck protector that goes underneath.
I like the clavicle
one of those. I did get one of those. So the last question is, we've been talking quite a while, and I appreciate that. What advice do you have for young goalies?
Oh, I mean, maybe it was growing up in Columbus, and it wasn't super prevalent as far as goalie coaching. But honestly, the advice I always have is like, if you want to be a goalie, it's kind of on you to make sure you get out of the practice what you need. Because if not, you're just going to show up and they're just going to be firing pucks at you. And I never really got lots of like targeted practice and drills and
Right.
stuff. It was just you're in net, stop the puck, right? So like go to practice with of, hey, I really want to work on T pushes or slides or
Mhm.
something, and don't really worry about the puck that much, or try to do every other one or something, and focus yourself on a specific skill, because if you don't
Yeah.
and you don't have a goalie coach, no one's doing it for you, because you're the one person on the team of 20, 25 folks. They're not
Yep.
going to spend an entire practice teaching you. They're going to be teaching the masses, and then you unfortunately just kind of get left out.
Well, and I've thought about it too with young goalies today. They have resources that we never had, from the
Oh,
the
yeah, they have.
Instagram coaches. I like to,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
some Matt Zabs of Mountain High Hockey Club likes to call it the Instagram coaches, where they're talking about YouTube, In Goal magazine, and even Sense Arena, which they had a killer deal, or it's like 50% off. I'm like, all right, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to get it for myself for the year. So it's like you can do that goalie specific stuff through virtual
Yeah.
reality off ice now. And so I'm like, they have so many things and I wonder if I had those same resources,
Right.
would I have been better,
Right.
or would I have kind of been in the same mix, in today's game, because all those kids have that too, but it's like, I don't know. But as Kane Van Gate says, all roads lead to the beer league. So at
Hey,
least I wound up
best
at the
league.
destination.
I mean, we all got there though.
Yeah.
I never had a goalie coach at all. The only
Yeah.
thing I had was if you would sign up for like extracurricular practices or whatever
Mhm.
during the summer, or, whatnot, or you go to goalie school and, for goalie camp or whatever.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, it was 100% my own, just
Same.
watching stuff. I remember I had a little bit of the advent of the internet where like you could read like a couple articles that were written on like black screens with
Yep.
neon text of, like GeoCities, the onset of the internet, where people were making
Yep.
horrible websites. I had a little bit of that,
Yeah.
but I
I
mean,
did have a
on
subscription to
YouTube.
Goalies World magazine, which had some great like
Oh,
breakdowns. That was a good one. And
oh,
then there was Ian Clark. They had put out it was called From the Crease, where it was like a monthly magazine, but
okay.
it was for goalie coach. It was basically coaching in a way. And the way they sent it out is at the end of each year, you got a binder to put them in, and you pulled the pages out and put them in order.
Huh.
So, in fact, I had every issue and I wound up scanning them. I'll have to send you some of the stuff's outdated because they're talking about how to do a proper pad stack, or skate
What do you mean
saves.
that's not outdated? Get out of here. That's a
That
beer league move.
Yeah. Oh, I still use it, and whenever I do, like, the refs find humor in it, and even the guys I stop using the pad stack, they're like, I'm not even mad. Um, I've been throwing the poke check out there a little more lately too, which is
Oh,
always fun. I'm always good with the poke check when it's coming from my glove side. I'm still apprehensive when they're coming from my stick side. It's so harder to time it, I think, but
yeah.
I've been working on it. Because at the end of the day, it's beer league. If they score, so what?
Yeah. I
We're
got a
having
move
fun.
for you for a beer league that you'll get some laughs, and you'll also confuse the daylights out of every ref. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So when you would inevitably get multiple breakaways a game
Oh yeah,
because defense doesn't exist in beer league, come out the top of your crease, close
yes,
to the hash marks or whatever, and as the skater's coming in, when the skater breaks the blue line, don't throw. Drop your stick. Just
yeah.
literally drop it or set it down like above, between your crease and the hash marks. 90% of the time, the forward will run straight into your stick and lose the puck. It is so funny because people
Yeah,
and they'll look up and they'll see your stick and then they look at you. They don't know what to do because they've never encountered this,
yeah.
and
Well,
it
and
is hilarious.
technically it's only a penalty if you throw your stick. If you're
Exactly.
dropping it while making a play, you're seeing it more with
Set it down.
Vasilevsky, where he'll drop his stick so that he can, do some of his contortions.
Right.
And one of the plays, his stick wound up stopping the puck, even though he had set it down as he was,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's only against the rules if you throw it. So
Right. Just
I'm,
go set it down, drop
yeah,
it, try it.
yeah.
It's hilarious.
I'll have to give it a try. So, well, Eric, again, thank you. I've enjoyed talking to you. I feel like I've just been talking to another goalie I've known for years, and I have a feeling we'll continue the conversations,
Yeah.
over socials and whatnot.
Yeah, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me on. And if you ever want to chat again, just let me know.
Yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't feel like we've been talking for over 2 hours, but here we are.
Yeah, hey, it worked out. It worked out good timing.
Yeah,
We got off work and everything, and so it's all good.
yeah, and I was just looking at the weekend YouTube subscriptions and put another one of yours into my must-watch list. So
Oh
I
yeah,
look forward to watching that one.
awesome. Well, I really appreciate the support, and just like this podcast, you couldn't do it if it weren't for people listening, and I couldn't do
Yep.
what I do if it weren't for people watching the video. So
Yeah, and
mutual respect.
I'm gonna put all the links to your social media, your YouTube and website, and all of that in the show notes, so
Well,
that
thank you.
that way us goalies don't have to remember it and try and go back to our computer or phones. They can just click on it because we're not the
So many
sharpest
pucks to the head.
bulbs. Yeah, sharp as marbles, I know. So, all right. So I just